You've probably heard that human beings use about 10% of their mental capacity, that there's 90% that we can potentialize and become superhumans. This is, in fact, a myth. As human beings, we do use 100% of our mental capacity. We are intelligent. You feel intelligent, right? You're smart. We are smarter than we were in 1900. And how do we know that? In the 1980s, there was a professor, Professor James Flynn, who was researching human intelligence. And so Professor Flynn looked at intelligence scores from 1900 up until the 1970s, the 1980s. And he discovered that in every decade, human intelligence was increasing by 3 points. So Professor Flynn projected that, well, we would continue to get smarter. This became known as the Flynn effect. So the Flynn effect is, as human beings grow, as communities grow, we get more intelligent. Professor Flynn, in 1975, saw that the average score, the average intelligence score, was around 100 points. And he projected that by 2025, that average score would be around 115 points. Now, this chat is about intelligence and technology, so let's talk about technology for a moment. In the 1970s, the digital clock was everywhere, and so you could tell the time very easily by just reading the numbers. Around the same time, pocket calculators. You could make amazing calculations without thinking too much, just by pushing the buttons. In the mid-1990s, the internet became publicly available. And everyone, by the end of the 1990s, everyone had access to internet either at home or in an internet cafe. In 2012, the smartphone, most of us had the internet in the palm of our hand. And in November of 2022, ChatGPT was launched publicly. And within 5 days, there were over 1 million users of ChatGPT. My name is Joellen Simpson. I have a doctorate in linguistics. I am not an expert in technology. I am, however, an educator. And I observe my students, and I observe the people around me. And I see there is a definite relationship between technology and intelligence. Remember, I said that we're smarter today than we were in 1900. Professor Flynn showed us that. We are, however, less intelligent than we were in 1995. What happened in 1995? The internet. This is now called the reverse Flynn effect. So Professor Flynn projected that we were going to continue getting more intelligent as the years went on. The reality is quite different. Remember, in 1975, the average intelligence was around 100 points. Today, the average intelligence is around 95 points. So instead of increasing 15 points, we have actually lowered 5. So what is this relationship between technology and intelligence? Let me ask you, do you know your phone number? You do, right? If somebody says, "What's your phone number?" you can say it. Do you know your mom's phone number? Probably. What about your best friend's phone number? No idea, right? It's in your cell phone. You don't need it. This is called digital amnesia. Digital amnesia is, if I know that information is in my cell phone, I don't need to remember it. I can give you 2 experiences from my life. I know my mom's landline phone number, even though she doesn't have a landline anymore. I don't know her cell phone number because it's stored in my cell phone, so I don't need to remember it. And back in the 1990s, I had hundreds of email addresses stored in my brain, and I could type them from memory. These days, I have hundreds of the first 2 or 3 letters of emails stored in my memory because my computer remembers them for me. I just have to remember the first few letters. Now, I'm sure you've looked up something on Google, right? Do you remember the answer? Do you remember the definition of what you looked up? The chances are that no. You may remember the term you looked up, but you probably don't remember the definition. This is called the Google effect. And the Google effect is, if I know I can find it online, I have very little reason to learn it or remember it. All of this is considered cognitive offloading, where I take my brain and I put it into my device, and my device does the remembering for me. I have an example for you from a friend of mine who has lived in Cali, Colombia her entire life. And one day recently, she was having dinner with friends in the extreme south of the city. And when dinner was over, around midnight, she got in her car, she programmed on her cell phone directions to go home. And she followed those directions blindly. And she found herself in the middle of a neighborhood that probably wasn't the best place to be in the middle of the night. And she was very frightened. So this is a real example of cognitive offloading. Instead of using her knowledge, her experience of living her entire life in the city, she followed the directions that her cell phone gave her. So, are we losing something? Remember, in the 1970s, digital clocks. I've heard, I don't know if this is true, I have heard that young people cannot tell time on an analog clock. They have to read the digital clock. Now, I don't have proof for that, I've just heard it, but I'll leave you that, thought. Pocket calculators, same time back in the 1970s. It's very difficult for people now to even make change. Yesterday, I bought lunch, I paid in cash. The young man behind the counter was giving me back money and giving me back money and more money, and finally I stopped him and I said, "You're giving me too much." He had to take out his cell phone and make the change. He couldn't do it in his mind. Now let's talk about screen time, because this is all related. Remember, in 2012, smartphones. 2013, Instagram allowed the possibility of uploading short videos in addition to static pictures. 2016, TikTok, pure videos. What's the result? By 2023, on average, we were watching 17 hours of videos each week. And a number of experts agree that by 2025, the average screen time on your cell phone each day is between 6 and 7 hours. So what's the relationship with intelligence? In this case, it's specifically with literacy. Screen time affects literacy. In 2025, a TED Talk in Vienna, Victor Ripabelli happily announced that this is the last generation that's going to be able to read. That's scary. He says that we're going to be using videos as our primary means of communicating with each other. In the United States, traditionally people read a lot, but a number of resources, newspapers and journals are reporting that the number or the percentage of literacy of people reading is going down in the United States. 40% less than 20 years ago. That's a lot. And they estimate that 50% of adults in the United States, a culture that traditionally reads, read no book, not a single book last year. All of these studies are showing that there is a direct relationship between screen time and literacy. And you can see this especially in our young audiences. This is a chart of the PISA scores, the PISA exam scores up till 2022. The chart in the middle has the reading scores. And you can see a high point in 2012, and then after that, it goes down. What happened in 2012? The smartphone. You can see similar trends in both math and science. So we're losing abilities according to these standardized exams. Now, what about ChatGPT? This data is up till 2022, which is when ChatGPT came out. I'm really curious to see the results from 2023, 2024, to see how these are going to behave. Let me give you an example of ChatGPT from my professional life. For many years, I was the general director of a language and cultural institute. And for all of those years, I was leading strategic planning sessions. And people had wonderful conversations, and they gave their ideas based on their experiences, and we created some really interesting strategic plans. In the last couple of years, with ChatGPT, I would ask the same kinds of questions, and instead of talking to each other, instead of saying, yeah, my experience is this, immediately, they would go to their phone, and they would ask ChatGPT to answer the questions for them. And the result was terrible, because ChatGPT has no idea what's going on inside the institution. If you're a student, it is estimated that at least 80% of students are using AI to either do their homework or to make an important contribution to their homework. Why does this matter? It's easier, right? It frees up time. That's what everybody says. Microsoft and MIT both did research in 2025, and they compared individuals who used a lot of AI to people who didn't use a lot of AI. They tested their linguistic skills, their cognitive skills, their creative skills, and they discovered that people who are using more AI have lower scores on every single test that they did. So we're not only offloading our memory, we're offloading critical thinking. Now, technology in and of itself isn't bad. There have been some amazing advances in agriculture, in business, in healthcare. But there is a darker side to technology. So let me ask you, where do you get your news? Do you open up your browser on your cell phone and ask it a question about the news? And do you read the first thing that comes up, which is the AI summary? If that's your primary source of news information, in August of 2024, 18% of that was incorrect. You would think it would be getting better. It's not. In August of 2025, 35% of the news that was reported in those AI summaries was incorrect. So that means if that's your primary source of news, a third of the times it's wrong. Let's talk about some other dark side of this technology. A third of teens today prefer to have a conversation with their AI companion over a real live companion. Similar to this, 40% of teens consult their AI companion for advice, life advice. Instead of talking to their parents, instead of talking to a teacher or a friend, they're going to their AI companion to ask their advice, its advice. 15% of young men have an AI girlfriend. 30% of AI conversations center on violence or sex. You may have heard that both OpenAI and Google have lawsuits against them by families who have a member who killed themselves because the AI companion told them to do so. So how is technology affecting us? First of all, we're losing touch with each other, with our friends, with our family. We're being misled. People tend to believe anything. If you see a video, if you see it on WhatsApp, you believe that that's true. We're losing our ability to think critically about the world around us. We're also losing creativity. Did you know that boredom is the #1 promoter of creativity? We're never bored anymore. We always have a cell phone in our hand. If you allow your brain to be bored, it will come up with creative ways to not be bored. So what should we do about all of this? Why are we talking about this? First of all, my recommendation to you is talk to each other. Human beings are social creatures. We need each other. We need to talk to each other. I also recommend that you read. I do not want this to be the last generation that knows how to read. That's very sad to me. And finally, think. If you're a student, do your homework without consulting AI. If you're an instructor, create your assignments for your students in ways that they have to think and not just put a question in ChatGPT and get an answer. And don't consult every decision that you need to make with your AI companion. Going back to the beginning, let's not turn that myth into reality. We want to use 100% of our brains. Don't let technology do it for you. Thank you very much.